The Young and the Restless spoilers shock under the waning light of a late autumn afternoon. Kyle felt the exhaustion of unresolved heartbreak press upon him like a lead cloak. He and Claire had built their relationship on shared dreams of stability and mutual understanding, yet the cracks that had first appeared as tiny fissures, misunderstandings over business priorities, lingering resentments over past betrayals, had widened until reconciliation felt impossible. Every attempt at compromise only seemed to deepen the divide, Claire withdrawing into chilly silence whenever Kyle sought to bridge the gap, and Kyle lashing out with harsh reproaches whenever Claire dared to broach the subject of commitment. Their once a vibrant laughter had dwindled to strained politeness, and each morning Kyle awoke with a hollow sense of dread, as though he were bracing himself for yet another battle over definitions of loyalty and love. It was in the midst of this desolation that the unthinkable occurred, an event so devastating that Claire, within hours, would be consumed by a regret so profound it would haunt her every sleeping and waking moment for the rest of her life. Late that same evening, as gray clouds swallowed the sun's last embers, Summer arrived in Genoa City carrying a secret life within her, a new baby, born in secret and cradled in her arms like a fragile promise of hope. Unlike the carefree teenager of years past, Summer now moved with the wary grace of someone who had carried unbearable weight. She had labored not only through physical pain but through soul-rending conflict, torn between her fiercely independent spirit and the overwhelming truth that she could not sustain both her career aspirations and the demands of motherhood. The choice she made was agonizing. She would entrust this innocent life to its father, hoping that in doing so she might reclaim some semblance of her own future. Standing before Kyle's stately front door, Summer's breath crystallized in the chill air as she placed the sleeping child gently on the wide stone porch, swaddled in a worn but lovingly prepared blanket. She paused only long enough to tuck a trembling letter into the folds. Words penned in tear-blurred ink, confessing her fear, her love, and her desperate hope that he would accept this child and raise it with the compassion and stability Summer felt she could no longer provide. Moments later, Kyle heard the sharp ring of the doorbell echo through the empty corridors of his home. Heart pounding, he rushed from the drawing room into the foyer, flinging the door open to find nothing but silence, and then, at his feet, the sobering sight of a tiny bundle. Panic surged through him as he stooped to uncover the swaddled infant's face, a delicate, serene countenance, complete with a faint brush of dark hair and lashes like soft whispers against porcelain skin. The letter, lying partly exposed on the stone steps, trembled in the wind. With trembling fingers, he scooped the child into his arms and read Summer's confession. That this was her daughter, born of choices neither of them had planned, that Summer could not bear to watch her dreams slip away under the crushing responsibilities of single parenthood, and that Kyle, despite whatever had divided them, had the right to know and to care for their child. As tears stung his eyes, Kyle felt a fierce protective surge. This small life, unquestioning and innocent, now lay solely in his hands. He pressed the baby to his chest, feeling the soft rise and fall of fragile breaths, and vowed to honor Summer's sacrifice by giving this child the love and security she deserved. No sooner had Kyle turned to seek help than the frantic arrival of Jack and Diane shattered the stillness. Jack's stern features, usually tempered with paternal calm, were drawn tight with alarm. Diane, her heart pounding, clutched her husband's arm as though to anchor herself to reality. "What happened?" Jack demanded, voice rough with fear as he followed Kyle's lead into the foyer and set eyes on the tiny passenger in Kyle's arms. Diane knelt by the child, her maternal instincts flaring to life as she checked the baby's warmth, her gentle touch betraying a sorrowful wonder that someone would abandon a newborn before such a formidable threshold. Overhead, the grand chandelier cast fractured light on their faces, illuminating the raw mixture of shock, dread, and fierce resolve that gripped them all. Jack's protective instinct roared to the surface, "I want every person in Genoa City searched. No stone left unturned." Diane, her voice trembling yet resolute, whispered to Kyle, "We'll get to the bottom of this, but right now, this baby needs us." In that moment, the fragile calm of their world shattered, replaced by a whirlwind of questions. Why would Summer leave her baby here? What had happened to drive her to such a desperate act? And, above all, what would become of this innocent life caught in the crossfire of fractured hearts and broken alliances? As the first raindrops began to patter against the window panes, Kyle, Jack, and Diane gathered around the infant cradled in Kyle's trembling arms. The gravity of their new reality settled upon them like an unshakable storm, a sudden parenthood thrust upon two people who had barely managed to navigate the tempest of their own emotions, and a mystery that demanded unrelenting scrutiny. Somewhere out there, Summer was watching, praying that Kyle would honor his duty and love their child as fiercely as she could not. And Claire, unaware of this life-altering development, would soon learn of the abandonment and be faced with a choice that threatened to crush her already fragile spirit. In the days to come, alliances would shift, loyalties would be tested, and the bonds of family would be reforged in fire. But in this moment, all that mattered was the soft, rhythmic sighs of the sleeping baby, the tears wet on Kyle's cheeks, and the unwavering determination in Jack and Diane's eyes to protect the innocent at any cost. Thus began a new chapter in the saga of Genoa City, a chapter written not just in heartbreak and redemption, but in the enduring promise of love's capacity to heal even the deepest wounds. Kyle stood in the foyer, his heart hammering against his ribs as the bitter truth of Summer's letter sank in. The note was clear: this tiny daughter, wrapped in the soft blanket he still clutched, was his child, and if he doubted her paternity, a DNA test would soon settle the matter. Each syllable in his mind sounded like a lash. It's your daughter. I cannot care for her now. Focus on your career. Please raise her for me. He turned, eyes blazing, to Jack and Diane, who had followed him in stunned silence. Jack's jaw was rigid, knuckles white around the edge of a grandfather clock. Diane's face was ashen with sorrow and disbelief. What kind of mother could abandon her newborn at the doorstep of the father she claimed? The question burned in Kyle's mind as he gently lifted the baby higher, cradling her to his chest with almost reverent tenderness, even as his anger roared. "Bring her inside," he said in a low voice, fierce with determination. Together, the three of them moved through the grand entryway, the soft click of Kyle's leather shoes against the marble floor echoing like a drumbeat of destiny. Jack hurried ahead to fetch a spare bassinet, while Diane duffled through a closet for fresh blankets and clothing. Kyle paused beside the baby's head, brushing a stray curl away from her eyes, marveling at her fragile beauty even as he vowed to protect her from the harshness that had driven Summer away. In the quiet warmth of Kyle's nursery, soft lamplight revealed the baby's gentle features. Chubby cheeks, a rosebud mouth, and tiny fingers curling instinctively around the soft cotton of Kyle's shirt. Diane cooed softly as she dressed the child in a freshly laundered onesie, her professional composure giving way to instinctive affection. Jack hovered protectively, his normally unshakable reserve betraying a tremor of emotion. Kyle paced the length of the room, phone in hand, the screen still displaying Summer's number. Despite his fury, a knot of worry formed in his chest. Was she safe? Why had she done this without explaining more? With a deep breath, he pressed call and lifted the device to his ear. The line rang, each tone magnifying the tension that crackled in the room. When Summer finally answered, her voice quavered through the crackle of the connection. "Kyle," she whispered. The single word carried the weight of her fear, guilt, and perhaps lingering hope. Kyle's response was a controlled fury. "You left your own daughter on my doorstep, Summer. You think this is acceptable? How dare you abandon her to me and run off to chase some dream?" His voice broke, and for a moment the nursery was filled only with the echo of his anger and the baby's soft breathing. Summer caught each word, and with every reprimand, her tears fell harder, her voice shrinking until it was nothing more than a broken sob. At last, she managed to utter, "Please, take care of her. Rachel deserves a future. I will come back soon." Then the line went dead, leaving Kyle standing alone with the ghost of Summer's apology and the living proof of her choice nestled against his heart. Kyle closed his eyes, fighting back the hurt that threatened to overwhelm him. He glanced at Jack and Diane, stalwart allies who had become his surrogate family in the years since his parents' passing, and saw in their faces the same question he dared not speak: what now? Jack stepped forward, placing a steady hand on Kyle's shoulder. "We'll handle this, son. We'll make sure Rachel," he paused, as though testing the name, "is safe and loved until Summer returns, if she ever does." Diane nodded, gathering her composure to marshal their next steps. "First, we'll have a DNA test," she said firmly, "to confirm what Summer claims. Then we'll decide on guardianship formally. And most immediately, we'll need to inform the pediatrician for a checkup. This child needs to be protected and medically cleared." Kyle's throat tightened as he considered each requirement. The legal and logistical hurdles loomed large, but beneath them lay something more fundamental, the dawning realization that his life had changed irrevocably. The once carefree bachelor who had managed family businesses and social obligations now faced the mantle of fatherhood, whether he had planned for it or not. He knelt beside the bassinet, gently placing the child down and smoothing the blanket around her. The motion felt tender and right, as though every instinct within him had always belonged to this moment. "Her name is Rachel," he murmured, surprising even himself. Summer chose it. At her tiny coo, he smiled despite the turmoil, his resolve crystallizing like steel in his bones. "Then Rachel she shall be." As they moved methodically through each task, dialing the pediatrician's office, arranging for DNA collection, and preparing a message for Summer, they settled into an uneasy rhythm. The evening storm outside had given way to a clear night sky, stars glittering through rain-washed windows as if bearing silent witness to their plight. Kyle placed a gentle finger on Rachel's back as she slept, absorbing the rise and fall of her breath. Jack and Diane exchanged soft words about next steps, who would stay with the baby overnight, where Kyle might find time to rest, how they would handle inquiries from the media if news of an abandoned child reached the tabloids. Through it all, Kyle felt the thrum of fierce protectiveness, a fierce love for this child he had barely known for an hour. He thought of Summer's work commitments, her burgeoning career ambitions, the opportunities she had begged to chase, and wondered whether she truly understood what she had given up, or whether in her ambition she had been cornered by desperation. He had no clear answers, only the certitude that he would not forsake Rachel as Summer had. The bitter sting of betrayal mingled with a burgeoning tenderness within him, forging a resolve to become the father Rachel needed, no matter how unwilling he might once have been. Later, as dawn's pale light began to creep across the nursery floor, Kyle finally allowed himself a moment of exhaustion. Scanning the quiet, he realized that in a single night his world had shifted on its axis. Childhood memories of his own father's guidance and kindness flooded back, reminding him that the path ahead, though unknown, could be navigated with compassion and courage. He picked Rachel up once more and held her close, imagining the day Summer would return to reclaim, or perhaps to rebuild, the relationship she had abandoned. Would Summer beg forgiveness? Would Claire, still unaware of this new chapter in Kyle's life, react with support or incredulity? Those questions would have to wait. For now, the only certainty was the soft warmth of Rachel against his chest and the unwavering promise he saw reflected in Jack and Diane's eyes, that family, no matter how unconventional or born of crisis, could be the wellspring of strength in the darkest of times. And so, as the city of Genoa awakened outside, Kyle closed his eyes and vowed silently to Rachel. A vow to stand in for the mother who could not be there, to shield her from harm, and to love her with every fiber of his being until Summer returned, and beyond. In the glittering wake of intrigue that never seems to abate in Genoa City, Victor Newman's restless ambition has found its next ingenious pawn in the unsuspecting Kyle Abbott. Ever since news of Summer's clandestine, and now aborted venture into single motherhood rattled the foundations of the Abbott clan, Victor has watched from the shadows with a calculating eye. He sees in Kyle not only a wounded rival, bruised by betrayal and sudden parenthood, but also a man whose guard has been lowered by shock and sorrow. Seizing the perfect opportunity, Victor summons Audra Charles to his offices at Newman Enterprises late one evening. There, flanked by the grandeur of Victor's imposing mahogany desk and the stern portraits of past Newmans, Audra listens as Victor lays out his plan. lure Kyle to the sumptuous Dumas summer house on the French Riviera under the pretext of an exclusive invitation to the fabled Aristotle Dumas fête. There, amid sun-dappled gardens and the echoing laughter of high society's elite, Kyle will be tantalized with the prospect of both escape from his domestic chaos and a chance to reclaim his place among the social elite he so desperately misses. In truth, Victor's machinations run far deeper. Audra, a former ally of Nikki's with her own debts to repay, will play the gracious hostess, feigning innocence even as she ensnares Kyle in a web of scandal and rumor, setting him up to be the target of a betrayal that could shatter his already fragile reputation. Meanwhile, back in the smoky study of the Abbott mansion, Holden Novak inches the receiver from his ear, transfixed by the clipped tones of Audra's conversation with the Grandmaster of Manipulation himself. Hidden behind a heavy velvet drape, Holden's sharp ears catch every nuance. Audra's feigned reluctance to draw Kyle out to the Riviera, Victor's sardonic reassurances that all the world watches when Newman and Abbott collide, and the subtle reference to ensuring Kyle's absence when the surprise arrives. The implications send a shiver through Holden's spine. He has long suspected that Victor's latest alliance with Audra is mere cover for a more insidious plot, but to hear it confirmed in Audra's guarded admissions marks the beginning of a game that could leave the entire family picking up the pieces. He slips away into the night, conscience aflame with the knowledge of a betrayal that may demand his intervention, or risk the ruin of yet another Abbott. Simultaneously, the undercurrents at Newman Enterprises pulse with their own brand of drama. Chelsea Lawson, ever the pragmatist caught between her loyalty to Adam Newman and her wary respect for Nikki, seeks counsel from the matriarch herself. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Chelsea finds Nikki in her private sitting room, a crystal decanter of bourbon catching the lamplight as they speak in hushed tones. Chelsea's questions are pointed: how to navigate Victor's temperamental whims and safeguard her position without sacrificing her moral compass or her relationship with Adam. Nikki, polished and wise from decades at Victor's side, offers sage advice entwined with cautionary tales from her own past. She reminds Chelsea that in this world, power is maintained through the careful balance of leverage and grace, and that Victor, wounded by the perpetual failings of his children, will grant no quarter to weakness. Back in the imposing marble corridors of Newman Tower, Adam Newman confronts his father's ultimatum. Either cede his burgeoning role at Newman Media to orchestrate a media onslaught against Billy Abbott, Kyle's prodigal brother and perpetual thorn in Victor's side, or face immediate dismissal and disgrace. The choice is brutal. To weaponize Newman Media against Billy is to break his solemn promise to Chelsea, jeopardizing the fragile trust they have rebuilt. But to refuse is to tear his own lifeline to power and risk tumbling into financial and social obscurity. In this crucible, Adam steels himself, calculating the political cost of each path. His gaze flickers to the framed photograph of his sister Sharon on Victor's desk, her expression serene, arms crossed in defiance, and he wonders whether family loyalty can survive at the mercy of corporate ambition. As these machinations converge, Chelsea takes it upon herself to parley directly with Victor. Draped in a sleek black sheath and armed with both resolve and vulnerability, she requests a private audience. In Victor's sanctum, a room heavy with the scent of leather and old money, Chelsea lays out her terms. She will support Adam's leadership at Newman Media and ensure his compliance, but in return, she asks for clemency for Billy. She invokes the memory of Victor's own losses, the families torn apart by vendettas and grudges that raged far beyond their usefulness. Slowly, Victor's steely facade flickers with something resembling consideration. He offers Chelsea a conditional agreement. If she can demonstrate that Billy's downfall would cause unacceptable collateral damage to Newman Enterprises, he may temper his wrath. In that moment, Chelsea senses the faint stirrings of genuine concession, a rare softening of Victor's iron grip. Yet she knows better than to trust completely. She must now marshal all her resources. Her charm, her cunning, her knowledge of Billy's vulnerabilities, to craft an argument powerful enough to sway the empire's unyielding ruler. Thus, Genoa City braces itself for another storm, one that will tear at the seams of both the Abbott and Newman dynasties. Kyle, at once distraught over Summer's abandonment and now unwittingly lured into a high-stakes trap, stands at the nexus of Victor's machinations. Holden, burdened with the secret of Audra's betrayal, faces a moral quandary. Reveal the plot and risk igniting a full-blown war, or remain silent and watch his family's fate unravel. Chelsea, caught between love and duty, must negotiate with the man she both fears and respects, wrestling with the knowledge that victory may demand the sacrifice of everything she holds dear. And Adam, torn between loyalty to his partner and loyalty to his father, must choose his future at the crossroads of ethics and ambition. In the days to come, alliances will fracture, hidden agendas will surface, and the price of power will be paid in heartbreak and shattered dreams. Yet through the swirling currents of deceit and desire, one truth remains immutable: in Genoa City, no secret stays buried for Eve.